Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Thank you for being with us. It's time for your garden questions and our garden answers. You got a question, send it on over to gardentalkradio@gmail.com. That's gardentalkradio@gmail.com. If you would like to give us a call, you can do that as well. Toll free, coast to coast at 1-800-927-SHOW. That's 1-800-927-7469. You can leave a message if we can't get to you. We'd also like to know where you're listening from. Either you give us a call or you can send us an email at gardentalkradio@gmail.com. What do we have, Holly? Oh, we've got our first question. Yep, is a phone call here. And
Hi, Joey and Holly. My name is Mary, calling from Milwaukee in Zone 5B. And my acorn squash that I planted are coming up nicely. And I just noticed today, for the first time, the big ugly vine borer, wasp or moth or whatever, flying around. So because they're so young, they only just each have maybe 1 or 2 true leaves on them. How big do they need to be, the actual plants, before I can give them the injection of the BT? Because I did purchase some BT just as a precautionary. So should I wait another couple days, or how big do they have to be? Because I don't want to kill the little plants at all. So thank you. I appreciate your show. Thank you both. Bye.
All right, Mary, we thank you for giving us a call at 1-800-927-SHOW. Listening to us on Joy, 1340 AM and 98.7 FM, squash, vine borer, and BT.
Yeah, so what you want to do is you want to, before you, even if there was larva in the stem of the plant, if you put BT in there, it's not going to kill the larva. It can prevent it if there's not
cautionary instead of a reactionary.
Yeah. So you want to be precautionary. So what you want to do is you want to look around the base of the plant, and if you see something that looks like sawdust around the base of the plant, that means
somebody's drilled a hole a couple of inches above the ground level, and there's kind of cascade of brown sawdust slime gook.
Yeah, so it looks like, it definitely doesn't look like a normal stem of the plant. And then in that case, that means that the larva are in there.
Yeah.
And the moth, laid its eggs or whatever, larva in there. So then you want to do a little surgery. So you take like a razor blade or a very sharp knife, and then you open up the stem and you look for the larva, and then you pull them out. And then the next day you want to kind of look up further up the stem, pull more out if they're in there. Then you could treat that with BT. It's not for, the people who don't get a little heebie-jeebies with squirmy things.
So if there is no indication that larva has been injected into the stem, you can go ahead and apply the BT into the stem. Is that accurate? If there is indication, it's null, it doesn't work until you remove that larva
Correct.
That's in the stem that's going to kill your plants from the inside out.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, next question here.
So the question is that I have a lot of flowers on my pepper plant. I do have a couple peppers growing. Should I harvest them when they're ready? It still feels early in the season. It's only like a couple, like 1 or 2 on my plants. What do I do?
Well, you can do you can do 2 things. One, you can go ahead and harvest them when they're small like this in order to get them off the plant, so the plant can try to get more girth on the plant before it starts producing peppers. If the peppers plant is already producing flowers and the plant is in a stage of it's green, even though it's small, it looks very healthy, you've got good soil, you've added proper nutrient to the soil, let it be. Let it do its thing. Where you're going to get into trouble is if you let that pepper or peppers stay on the vine indefinitely to where, like on a mature, let's do the example, a mature bell pepper plant comes green. That's an immature pepper. People will harvest them then. But if they wait longer, it'll turn yellow or orange or red. And then once that begins to change, you can go ahead and harvest it. It's when you leave it on for, oh, it's changed, now I'm going to leave it on for another 2 or 3 weeks. That plant is maturing the seeds inside of that pepper. It doesn't care. It'll shut down everything else. As long as it gets a certain amount of mature seeds, then that growing cycle of that plant is done. So you can harvest these as they begin to get to a size that you're happy with, but you don't want to leave them on indefinitely. And there's a certain point, yes, if you're buying a container, don't buy a container of peppers at the garden center that have flowers and peppers on them. If you put them in the ground and there was no flowers or pepper development on that seedling, and now 2, 3, 4 weeks into the growing cycle, they begin to do that, that's fine. Let them be.
Okay, so next question is, my coworkers, they're not exactly gardeners, but they saw like on somewhere that you can kill weeds with vinegar.
Not reliable source.
Not reliable source.
We talked about this last week.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I just was wondering, I keep hearing this. I know that there's certain types of vinegar, but what's the deal?
So this is a homemade weed killer where you use soap, salt, and vinegar in order to spray on your weeds as a broadleaf herbicide. Don't do it. First of all, salt is not good in quantities. The soap is used to, it's a whole thing. Last year we had the Grumpy Gardener, Steve Binder, on, and he explained it in great detail. We spoke about it last week in great detail, that the predominant vinegar in which you're buying at the grocery store is 3 to 5%. Used to be 7, now it's 5, and now they're converting it to 3. Side note, if you're going to pickle and use it as a canning mechanism, it's got to be a minimum of 5%.
Yeah. Yep.
So you got to read the label. So there's a handy canning tip for the week. 5% on your vinegar, not 3%. The vinegar weed killer that you would buy over the counter is between 20, 30, and even 45% vinegar. This 3 to 5% stuff is not going to cut it. The weeds are just going to laugh at you and keep growing. Now, Nat Green Products at natgreenproduct.com, they have a proprietary weed killer that is a natural weed killer that does do a very good job of killing weeds. Now, whether you make your own weed killer with a very strong vinegar, whether it's 20, 30, 45%, or you buy from Nat Green Products, this is not a glyphosate. This is not a one and done application most of the time. This kills you're going to have to burn the leaves a couple of times in order to kill it. But it's greatly, in the grand scheme of things, most people will agree that it's less harmful to the environment than using a glyphosate weed killer. So the simple answer is no. It's a terrible thing to try to make your own with the over-the-counter vinegar, salt, and dish soap. Just don't do it.
All right. So my neighbor has these cats. They're free roaming, whatever you want to call them. Sometimes I see them in my garden. I don't think they're messing with anything. I hope that they're maybe chasing bad things out. I don't know. I think I saw one, kind of just running through, but I just want to know if there's something I can do to keep them out just in case they are messing with anything.
Well, if they're using your raised beds or your garden as a litter box, there's not much you can do at this point. Now, there are some things in which will deter them. One is to make sure you keep the soil damp and your plants hydrated, because damp soil will keep rodents from moving into your garden. Make sure your straw bales are moist, not sopping wet. That's going to keep bees and bugs and rats and mice out of your garden. These cats may be coming in because they are predators and they may be seeing that activity. They may just be strolling through. You can also incorporate, if you have small areas that they are specifically targeting, you can get pine cones and put a layer of pine cones where they won't walk on it. They do make cat deterrent products that are safe, but it will keep the cats away. So it's something that you're going to have to look at, see what they're doing, see where they're doing it, see why they're doing it. And many people do not want to eradicate cats because they are benefit in the realm of rodent control. So that is something you're going to have to look at.
Yeah.
People will put forks, upside down plastic forks in their beds, and the cats will just wing through them and kind of lay between the forks. So that's not necessarily always, and it looks terrible, 1,000 forks, plastic forks in your raised bed trying to keep cats out.
Right. And, everybody has their opinion about indoor cats, outdoor cats, outdoor cats, whatever. So I would just try to deter them with like the pine cones or whatever. All right. So the next question is, as I saw this bee bath, bee drinking hydration station on social media, it seemed like a good idea. I'm not really sure. Is it? So in case anybody doesn't know, bee bath or bee hydration station, and this can be for like many insects, is you basically take a shallow dish, put some rocks or pretty stones or what have you in that shallow dish, and then you put water. You don't cover the rocks, you just put water like up to the sides of the rocks, and then it allows for these bees, and you put it somewhere in your garden. They can come and get hydrated. It's helpful, and it is helpful.
Yes. It is effective.
Yeah.
You do want to be aware of how large of a dish that you have the water in, and the concern that would be is the standing water and the potential of mosquito reproduction. It's not, you do have the rocks that are, and the water is halfway up the rocks or the pebbles or the stones, but you do want to, every 2 or 3 days, flip that water over, because we learned that it takes every 4 to 5 days larvae can reproduce mosquitoes in standing water. So there's nothing wrong with having stagnant water. So there's nothing wrong with having water for your insects or your bee bath. It's if it's stagnant, you want to flip that water out and refill it up every couple of days if it's not raining and agitating that water. So with that being said, we are out of time, and we thank you for yours. It's time for what we learned today on the program. Holly, what did you learn?
I learned that NASCAR drivers prehydrate, and they lose, what did you say, 5 to 7 pounds?
5 to 7 pounds in some instances. Like the Indy 500, it's a different sport, but they can lose up to 10.
Right.
On that. And I learned that the correlation between pandemic or diseases and seeds, viruses, is much more prevalent than what we maybe have known.
Right.
So there's some correlation there. What we learned today is sponsored by
honeybeehealthy.com. Whether you're a gardener, a bee hobbyist, or a professional beekeeper, Honey Bee Healthy Inc. has the products to help you maintain a healthy, hive, and thriving garden. For more information on how to use your Honey Bee Healthy in your garden, visit honeybeehealthy.com.